This morning I'd like to say a few words about busy, too busy, which seems to me to be a description of many of our lifestyles today. Brian Greene is an American theoretical physicist and mathematician, subjects that attract my attention because they were my majors years ago in college. He spoke at Union's Theological Seminary a couple of years ago, coming across the street from Columbia University, where he was a professor there. He spoke to us about the universe in which we live. He talked about theories that were once put forth by Einstein, ranging from the enormous universe that we gaze up to in the heavens at night to the tiniest of particles, which is known as particle physics or quantum mechanics. Things we can hardly imagine, they are so small. Among the astounding things that Albert Einstein once said was the claim, all things, including you and including me, are traveling at the speed of light, though it isn't readily apparent to us relative to other things around us. And as attention-getting as that claim might be, I'm just using that theory or that claim to introduce the topic for today. A few years ago, I made a pastoral visit to a young family looking for a church home, and they were new in West Haven, were inquiring about the church. Until a recent life-changing experience in their family, they explained they had not found any time to belong to a spiritual community, such as a church. Here's a brief summary of what life was like for them. They actually handed me the written list, and you know I save everything. Dad works a night shift, including weekends, and Mom works day shifts and tries to be home after school. Monday is beginners football, Tuesday is ballet, tap, and dance classes, and Wednesday is piano lessons for 2 of the 4 kids. Thursday is the taekwondo or tai chi classes for another. Friday is for swim lessons for 3 of the 4, and Saturday and Sunday are soccer days. They're very rarely sitting together at the table to eat dinner at night. When I visited them, the mother made a telling comment. She said, "In our family, we might as well be traveling at the speed of light." Fresh from reading my book on that subject, I had to resist telling her that Einstein's theories would agree with that. Life for many people today feels like it is going much too fast for comfort, too fast for meaning, too fast for relationships, too fast for listening carefully to understand, too fast for our spiritual lives, too fast for appreciating how beautiful things really are and people are. And yet we keep choosing very rapid lifestyles, buying into them, investing in them, supporting them, as we read in worship, as we tend to worship speed. Remember 18th century English writer Jonathan Swift? He wrote Gulliver's Travels. Remember, Gulliver had been rescued from a shipwreck and then held by his captors, the Lilliputians, who were people only 6 feet or 6 inches tall. Well, they were in the country of Lilliput, that's why they were Lilliputians, and as they examined their catch, Gulliver, they brought his watch to the king, who asked what it was. "It must be his God," was one answer, followed by, "He never does anything without consulting with it." Today it's our smartphones. Seems that is the way that many of us in our society live today, not seeming to know how to escape the rush of our own schedules. Many things are sandwiched into short blips of time, including some of the most important things of life. Sometimes we notice this, and sometimes we don't. When you meet someone at the store and say, "How are you doing?" how often the reply comes back, "Busy, busy, I'm very busy." Many times that's as far as the conversation goes because there's no time to stop and to expand on what that word busy contains. Many folks don't take the time for a traditional lunchtime. Many people eat on the run, work while they eat, eating meals while doing other things, working, reading, driving, watching TV, watching their cell phones. Busy symptoms of being too busy are when no matter what you are doing, you have a sense that you ought to be doing something else you don't have time for. Or no matter how hard you work, you always feel like you're behind. Or you get to the end of the week and in spite of all of the activity that has kept you busy, you find yourself wondering, what have I really accomplished other than being busy? For many people, their work follows them around anytime and everywhere, beepers and cell phones on everyone's belt, worn in the car, in restaurants, ball games, grocery stores, everywhere. For many folks, the clear boundaries that once separated one's work from one's recreation have become blurred or even washed away. Many folks conduct personal business at work. Some conduct their work at home. The physical separation of work and home has become much less clear than it once was. Life is filled with a virtual explosion of choices for just about everything, with more channels to watch, more lessons to take, more stuff to buy and sell, more activities to participate in, if not in real life, then on the computer or on our smartphone, which is full of games and Facebook posts and Twitter comments, and you name it. Messages between people communicated at the speed of light, of all things. The world, at least in our society, teaches that being busy all the time is being productive. It's a virtue, successful, efficient, effective, meaningful. Jesus teaches us a lesson that runs counter to that. When he visits two sisters, Mary and Martha, Mary sits at Jesus' feet, listens to what he has to say. To Martha, who thinks she doesn't have time to do that, Jesus says, "You're worried and distracted, Martha. There is need for only one important thing, and Mary has chosen the better part." Jesus was a busy person, and so were his followers. But look at what he did. For himself, as we read in Mark chapter 1, in the morning, Jesus got up and went to a deserted place, and there he prayed. He prayed. Do you feel a certain calmness in that thought and in those words? In Mark 6, Jesus directs his busy followers after a tiring day to do the same thing. He says, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." I have a book in my office, 100 wisdom stories from around the world, and one story tells of native guides leading a group of tourists on a safari during through a jungle rainforest. The first day they marched along rapidly and they covered a lot of ground. The second day the native guides refused to go any further without sitting and resting. And finally, the tourists, who were paying customers, they began to complain. "Why are we just sitting around today doing nothing?" The reply was given, "We went too fast the first day, and now we're waiting for our spirits to catch up with our bodies." There are times, in fact, many times in today's culture, when our lives move too fast that we need to slow down and let our spiritual lives catch up with the meaning of it all, with our physical speed and our running around. If you don't do that regularly, you will gradually find yourself not knowing why you're doing all of those things. You'll miss the meaning of it all, trying to run around on empty. Right now, even as we are thinking about these things, research and technology is busy coming up with new discoveries and devices well before we are anywhere near prepared to make some of the complex, often ambiguous and confusing moral and ethical choices that come along with these advances. In the midst of a world of advances and activities that figuratively seem to approach the speed of light, we need to be people who regularly choose to find time to go apart for a peaceful, prayerful time with God. Do you do that? Engage in a spiritual discipline? Do you really do that? Prayer is spending time with God, and there is a real problem if there is no time to do that. Spending time with God allows our spirits to catch up with the rest of our busy lives, strengthens our resolve to do the will of God in the midst of all of those busy things, to make wise choices, to focus on the things of life that are of greatest importance and enduring value. Instead of the expression, "Don't just sit there, do something," we do well to hear the message of Jesus that calls us to do the opposite. Don't just do something. Sit there. Be with God. Talk with God. Reflect on life with God. Learn the teachings of God. Apply the teachings. Let God's Spirit take the lead in your life. You'll be amazed at where that leads.